Um, okay, so that's the revived form, or the head that was healed. And so all the non-elect, those who are not predestined for salvation, will be amazed at the beast, and they will follow the beast, the Antichrist, and receive the mark of the beast, and so forth. In verse 9 it says, "Here's the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains." Now, in Bible symbolism, mountain is always a kingdom. And so the woman, which represents pagan religion, has pretty much dominated these historical countries, Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, and so forth, down through history. Paganism has dominated these worldly kingdoms, and so this is what is symbolized by the woman sitting on the beast. In other words, the woman was in control, and so the kings and the pagan religion were kind of like working together. The pagan religion was usually dominant. And then it says, they are 7 kings, 5 have fallen. So the first 5, Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medo-Persia, and Greece, are history. And then it says 1 is, okay, that would be the 6th one, which is Rome, which was existent at the time of John. And the other is not yet come. In other words, the revived Roman Empire was still future to John. When he comes, that is, when the revived Roman Empire comes, he must remain a little while. And the beast, which was and is not, is himself also an 8th, and is one of the 7. Okay, so the 8th is the beast, which is the Antichrist, which is the final kingdom. He's one of the 7, and he goes to destruction. And the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received the kingdom. Okay, so these will be subordinate kings under the Antichrist, but they receive authority as kings with the beast for 1 hour. And they have one purpose, and they give their power and authority to the beast. Okay, so they are like vassals under the beast, under the Antichrist. And so they join with the Antichrist to oppose a Christ when Christ returns. Okay, so this, I think, is the correct interpretation of this 7-headed beast. Okay, so let's then go back to chapter 13 of Revelation and pick up from there. Okay, reading chapter 13 and verse 1. And he, or it could be I, stood on the sand of the seashore. And I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads, and on his horns were 10 diadems, and on his head were blasphemous names. And the beast which I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like those of a bear, and his mouth was like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon, Satan, gave him his power and his throne and great authority. And I saw one of its heads as if it had been slain, and his fatal wound was healed. And the whole earth was amazed and followed after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, because he gave his authority to the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like the beast, and who is able to wage war with him? And there was given to him a mouth speaking arrogant words, and blasphemies, and authority to act for 42 months was given to him. And he opened his mouth in blasphemies against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, that is, those who dwell in heaven. And it was given to him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them, and authority over every tribe and people and tongue and nation was given to him. And all who dwell on the earth will worship him, everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who has been slain. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is destined for captivity, to captivity he goes. If anyone killed with a sword he must be killed. Here is the perseverance and faith of the saints. Okay, so we'll pause here. So remember, we're in an interlude or a pause in the progression of the book of Revelation, going through the tribulation period. So far we have covered the first half of the tribulation, which was the seals, the seven seals, and the seven trumpets. And that got us up to the middle of that 7-year period. And so now there's an interlude for several chapters, chapters 11 through 14, in which various subjects or topics are taken up, which serve us as background knowledge so that we can understand the last half of the tribulation. It deals with various organizations, various persons. And for chapter 13, it's filling us in on these two beasts, which are going to be very important in the second half of the tribulation. Okay, so John sees these two beasts, and there's a lot of symbolism here, but the symbolism is very plain, very obvious. Okay, it's a beast, of course, because as far as its morality and everything, it's evil, and it's coming out of the sea. The sea usually stands for the mass of humanity, and it having 10 horns and 7 heads, and on its horns were 10 diadems, and on its heads were blasphemous names. Okay, so we've already said that the 7 heads represent the 7 major countries or empires which have had dealings with the nation of Israel down through history, beginning with Egypt, from the time that Israel was in Egypt, and then it was Assyria, then Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, and those for us are all in the past, and then in the future there will be a revived Roman Empire, and then that will be followed by the kingdom of the Antichrist himself. Okay, so that's these 7 heads then are all incorporated into this beast. And the 10 horns represent the 10 kings which will be contemporary with the beast and be subordinate to them. And so on the 10 horns were 10 diadems or crowns, and on his head were blasphemous names. Okay, so down through history, these 7 superpowers, and then the 8th, that of the Antichrist, have all been ungodly, pagan, idolatrous, corrupt, and so there was all these blasphemous names on them. Okay, so the symbolism is clear, The beast which I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like those of a bear, and his mouth was like the mouth of a lion. You remember from Daniel, various symbolisms. The Greek Empire was like a leopard, and that represented the speed. The leopard is a very fast animal. Like, I think cheetah would probably even be considered a leopard in this terminology. Cheetah is one of the fastest animals that there is. So a cheetah or a leopard, and this represents Alexander the Great and his conquest. He just flew over in this conquest. Conquest so fast. And he's working backwards here. So the leopard would be Greek, and the feet were like those of a bear. The bear would be the Medo-Persian. Remember in Daniel, there was the bear that was raised up on one side that had the three ribs in his mouth and so forth. The bear is a plodding animal. He just plods along. This is like the Medo-Persians. They just put millions of soldiers on the field, and they just stomp over their enemy. They just plodded along. And then the lion was Babylon and Belshazzar. So all of the characteristics of the previous empires were all incorporated into that of Rome and of the beast. So it's all kind of a conglomerate. Okay? And then the dragon gave him his power. Okay, the him then is referring to the final leader, which would be the Antichrist. And Satan is giving the Antichrist power and his throne and great authority. Okay, so Satan has been made the god of this world by the free will of the people. People have a choice of whether they will serve God or serve Satan. And the vast majority have chosen to serve Satan. And so by their choice, they have made Satan the god of this world. So Satan is the one who is controlling, of course, under under God's permission. Satan is very limited and controlled by God. He can only do so much. But Satan is the one who is influencing the nations down through history to persecute the Jews and all the anti-Semitism and everything. Satan has the objective of eliminating the Jews from the world, probably thinking that since the Jews are a major part of God's plan, that if the Jews are annihilated from the world, then God's plans will come to naught. Even, I don't know what's going on in Egypt, even Gaza right now. I don't understand why they're doing what they're doing, but anyway, all the Middle East conflict and everything, the Islamics want to eliminate Israel. So it's right up to the present day and goes all the way back to Egypt, and the Pharaoh ordered the midwives to throw all the boy babies in the river, so forth. So all down through history, there's been all Satan's attempts to annihilate Israel. And so all this has been under Satan's influence. And so all this power, the throne, and authority comes from Satan. Verse 3, and I saw one of the heads as if it had been slain. Okay, so that was the Rome that existed during the early centuries of the church after Christ. uh, actually from about almost 200 years before Christ, was when Rome started rising in dominance and everything, and it lasted up to about 400 AD, it started crumbling. And so this would represent the head that had the fatal wound. But like, with modern medicine and everything, we're able to resuscitate this fatal wound was healed. Some people think that this is actually referring to the Antichrist, who will be assassinated, and then Satan will bring him back to life. But I don't think that's what it's referring to. I think it's referring to Rome itself, which is in decline right now. It's practically non-existent, even though it's in the infrastructure, political, because all the laws of Western civilization and everything are continuation of the Roman Empire and so forth. And when the Antichrist arises, he will be in the same geographical location and so forth, and so this will be considered as a revival of the Roman Empire. In other words, the fatal wound was healed. Okay, there in the middle of verse 3. And the whole earth was amazed and followed after the beast. And now this is the Antichrist now. And there's a lot of miracles. Whether they're genuine miracles or just deceptive type miracles, a lot of deception is going to be used by the Antichrist and the false prophet. And we notice that technology is advancing and things are going to look like they are miracles. I just was reading yesterday where they figure in 10 years the computers will be so powerful and they will have such a knowledge of genetics and everything that they will be able to program the computer to emulate the various genes, and so the computers will actually act as if they were alive, because the computers will be emulating the genes. They're starting out with a very simple E. coli, which is kind of a bacteria that's in our intestines and so forth, and they're going to try and make, as the computer develops, make the computer be able to do everything that this little life form can do, and they say once they do that, then they'll be able to do more. So whether they can make the computer act like it's alive and simulate life, or maybe they're put together, I don't know. But anyway, that's what they're trying to do. That's their goal right now, and perhaps they will be able to achieve something that will simulate or emulate life. But technology is advancing pretty good, and putting people on life support systems, keeping their bodies alive even though they're brain dead, and all this. It seems like nothing that's here is out of the question. Everything that is spoken of here will be entirely possible if it's not even possible now. But anyway, it says in verse 4, and they worshipped the dragon because he gave his authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, he is like the beast, and he is able to wage war against him. Okay, verse 5, and there was given to him a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and authority to act for 42 months was given to him. Okay, 42 months is 3.5 years, and whenever this period of time is designated, it's always referring to the last half of the tribulation period, which we call the Great Tribulation. And if you recall from the book of Daniel, Daniel's various visions in chapters 7, 8, 11, and 12, it's talking about the Antichrist, that the major thing that he was doing is blaspheming against God and persecuting the saints and increasing in power. So that's exactly the same thing here. We see it, it's all tying together. And then in the middle of verse 6, beginning of verse 6, he opened his mouth in blasphemies against God to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, that is, those who dwell in heaven. Okay, so he's in total defiance of God, and he appears to be getting away with it, as if God is powerless before him. And so it looks to all the non-elect in the world, it looks as if Satan is being victorious, because he is just rising in power and he is persecuting the saints, and there's nothing hindering him. Now this is something that even appalled Daniel, that God would allow his saints to be persecuted so terribly and to be martyred and butchered and slaughtered and everything. But this is all in God's plan, and God in his wisdom will see to it that those who are martyred, they will be rewarded, and none of the martyrs will ever complain to God after they see the final end of it all. But this is all part of God's plan to make Satan think that he is being victorious, and to make all the people who are in defiance of God think that they are succeeding. And Psalm chapter 2 refers to this also. Let me just read a little passage from the second Psalm. It says, why are the nations in an uproar, and the people devising a vain thing? In other words, they are thinking that they can defeat God. The kings of the earth take their stand. Remember, there's 10 kings, the 10 horns. The kings of the earth take their stand, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed. Let us tear their feathers apart and cast away their cords from us. They think they're going to get out from under the domination of God. See, they're living in a dream world. He who sits in the heavens will laugh. The Lord scoffs at them. Then he will speak to them in his anger. Pretty soon his patience is going to run out. Once they have gotten where he wants them to be, he will speak to them in his anger and terrify them in his fury. But as for me, I have installed my king. So this is the Father talking about Christ. I have installed my king upon Zion. For Zion is the mountain that Jerusalem is built upon. I have installed my king upon Zion, my holy mountain. So, you see, this isn't even phasing God one little bit, all this blasphemy and everything. But the people of the earth think that they are conquering God. But God is not even saved. So the Antichrist is blaspheming as if he was getting away with it. And he's doing this for 42 months, or for 3.5 years. Verse 6, when he opened his mouth and blasphemies against God, he blasphemed his name and his tabernacle, that is, those who dwell in heaven. And it was given to him to make war with the saints. Now, of course, it is God who gave him this freedom to do this, to make war with the saints and to overcome them. So it will look like the Antichrist and Satan are triumphing. And authority over every tribe and tongue and people and nation was given to him. Okay, so during this 3.5 years, the Antichrist just continues to increase in his power and to consolidate his power. And the whole time he is just increasing. Verse 8, and all who dwell on the earth will worship him, everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who has been slain. So all the non-elect, all those who were not foreordained to be saved, will worship the beast, the Antichrist, and Satan. So this is all going according to God's plan. So if anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is destined for captivity, okay, so this is all predestined by God. If they're destined for captivity, to captivity he goes. If anyone kills with a sword he must be killed. And here is the perseverance and the faith of the saints. Okay, so it looks as though Satan and the Antichrist are achieving their goals, but they are just playing right into God's hands. God has it all planned out from the foundation of the world, and this is all part of God's plan to completely eliminate evil. It's like setting a trap and putting out some bait in order to bring the enemy out into the open. And then when the enemy comes out, then we destroy him. So this is what God is doing with Satan and with evil. God is letting Satan come out, and then when Satan and the Antichrist think that they have achieved their goals and everything, then Christ will come back, and in an instant they will all be annihilated. But that will annihilate evil from the universe, or else it will at least concentrate it in the lake of fire, so that through all eternity in heaven there will never again be a possibility that evil can come in like it did in the Garden of Eden. So this is God's way of ensuring that evil will never come out again. Now there's a lot about this that we don't understand. That God has his ways, and so there's things about this that we don't understand. The big question a lot of people stumble over is, well, why did God let evil come in the first place? Why did God let Satan get into the Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve? Well, we have only a vague notion of why God allowed that, but we know that God in his wisdom did that, and he had good reason for doing that. And in the end, throughout all eternity, that possibility will never arise again. So that's what this final period of the Great Tribulation is achieving. Okay. So, why don't we, here's a major break in the chapter, so why don't we just stop here for now. We'll pick up again in verse 11 next time. Any questions or comments?